in the NHL with Palek and Pollock. So good signing for the New York Islanders, both on and off the ice.
I think it's a fantastic signing as well. The fit is so perfect. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, the whole coming full circle, going back to the team that drafted you and whatnot. And the jokes are going around all over social media. Where were you in 1990? Was it six or something when he got drafted? And I was like, wow, I was starting high school. I'm like, damn, that was a long time ago. My wife was like, I was starting grade one. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. But the fit is so great also because of the style that Barry Trotz actually praises onto this Islanders squad as well. Because I mean, this is a defensive master for that matter, and everyone has bought into the system last year, which is why they made it so far in the playoffs and actually challenged for a spot in the Stanley Cup Finals as well, whether you like it or not. And putting a guy like Chara, you put him on the third pair, you play him maybe 12, 13 minutes a game and everything, and he'll give you what you expect of him. No, he's no longer an offensive threat. Forget about that. But he's still a man that on skates is practically 7 feet tall, the size of Brock Lesnar practically, and and then it's like it's still an intimidating figure. Leading on from that, I actually I'm gonna press the rewind button just because you mentioned something that I feel that maybe we should expand on a little bit. You mentioned Brady Tkachuk earlier, and you mentioned how he's a candidate to become Senators captain. Um, I find it really well. First of all, I'm reading all the stories online, and what's true, what's not, we don't know because that's the beauty of the offseason. There was so much BS going on, and I think you could pretty much attest to that, especially with the recent Samuel Morin news.
Yeah.
Where for those who weren't aware, that it was reported all over social media that Samuel Morin from the Philadelphia Flyers broke his knee or something like that. Anyways, his career was pretty much over until he's the one who actually reached out to media and being like, I'm fine. I got a bruise, and that's pretty much it. Like, I'm good to go, buddy. I don't know what the hell's going on, But back to the Kachucks, everyone who's known his the paternal units in Keith Kachuk knows that he drives a hard negotiation. He's always, expected top dollars and try to get every single penny out of it. And it seems what the Suns are doing as well. And now Matthew Kachuk from Calgary goes out and saying, "Oh, there's no deal, not even close. We're going for the max amount of money and everything." So I'm like, you already got a guy like Thomas Chabot making $8 million a year. I mean, seriously, like, are you gonna pay Brady Tkachuk $8.5 million a year, for example? Give him the captaincy on top of that, giving all that whirlwind and controversy around him and stuff like that. And this goes back to a recurring question that we've had on this show, and I'm sure you've heard it a bunch of times because I know you've been here listening to us as well. Is this obsession with paying players before they've proven anything?
It's a trend in the NHL that I feel like has really caught on ever since probably Connor McDavid signed his contract. And that's not to say, or even going back farther than that, probably the Leon Draisaitl deal that a lot of people thought was a bad contract coming off of his ELC when he got $8.25 million per year, which is now a steal. But I think that it has just gone so far the other way and kind of an overcorrectness of such, in my opinion, because I think for a lot of years there were players that weren't getting paid enough and they would only start getting paid in their late 20s. And now it's kind of like you're paying players for what they're going to do as opposed for what they've done. But on the flip side of that, you look at guys in their 30s and you become let's say a UFA and you're north of 30, you're not getting anything. And I look at a guy like Wayne Simmons, who he was on one of the best value contracts for years and years and years,
Yep.
making just under $4 million with the Philadelphia Flyers as one of the best power forwards in the NHL. And then he gets to UFA. He struggles to find a 1-year contract from the New Jersey Devils in the summer of 2019 for $5 million. And then ever since then, he's making near league minimum with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I can understand the want of players and agents to get paid now, because it seems as though once you're 30 in the NHL, you're pretty much viewed as spare parts unless you're Sidney Crosby or players in that stratosphere. So I look at a guy like Brady Tkachuk, specifically with the Ottawa Senators, and he kind of has them over a barrel here. And, they flushed the prior core down the toilet in the likes of, let's say, Derek Brassard and Mark Stone and Mike Hoffman and Erik Karlsson, because they did not want to pay that group and they felt that that core was kind of fool's gold. They weren't as good as maybe that 2017 run was indicated. But now I'm looking at it, I'm saying, to your point, you've already paid Thomas Chabot, you have Brady Tkachuk, you really have to pay him at this point. Do I think that at this juncture he's an $8.5 million player in the NHL? Probably not, but is he an $8.5 million player for the Ottawa Senators and that organization? I would probably say yes. So
seriously, because this is a guy who scored 20 goals a year, man. 20 goals, 40 points. Are you going to pay $8 million a year to a guy who's doing 40 points a year? Granted, his ceiling is extremely high. That much I will agree. But that's the point I'm trying to make. Like, especially when you're trying to build a team. I mean, you tell him, listen, buddy, you've been around 20 goals, he goes 40 points. We'll give you, worst case, you give him half of that. You give him $4 million a year.
Well, you could give him that, but then you're gonna give him what, 2 years, and then what happens in a couple of years from now when the cap goes up? Is he going to become a $9 million player? This is the problem that you're in, and you also got to look at it through the lens of the Ottawa Senators. What does he mean for that team? Mm-hmm. Beyond Brady Tkachuk, what player is going to be the face and the leader of that offensive group? Now, you can make the case it could be Josh Norris after the breakout season he had. Could it be Tim Stützle when all is said and done? But you look at what they just gave Drake Batherson, and Drake Batherson just got 6 years at a shade under $5 million. So he got a long-termish deal. Now, obviously, he's older than Brady Tkachuk, or at least I believe he is. But if he's worth $5 million, what is Brady Tkachuk worth? And that's the problem you kind of get when you lock in players lower on your depth chart as opposed to higher. Because now it's starting at $5 million. So in my opinion, if you want to go short-term, let's say like the Flames did with Matthew Tkachuk 2 years ago, you're looking at 3 years, $7 million. But then in that 3 years, how much is his play going to elevate over that time? Because when you got to look at it, when players are in this, 20 to 25 range, you got to think about how much it costs to eat up their UFA years. That's the big thing. When I talk to agents, when I talk to GMs, it's always, you got to figure out how much those UFA years are worth. And in terms of Brady Tkachuk, who is 3 years removed from his draft, he's 21 years old. If you're going to lock him up on an 8-year contract and you're taking away 3 or 4 years of UFA, you're going to have to compensate him for that. So for me, where the Ottawa Senators are at, I think it's a risk well worth taking for them to give him 8 years at $8.5 million. But if there is a trepidation there, then I would think you would go the route of what Matthew did with Calgary.
Yeah, and the way you've explained it, well, thank you for that explanation, Anthony. It actually makes a lot of sense. And I think a quick comparable could be, PK Subban, for that matter,
exactly.
where he signed a bridge contract after his entry-level draft. He's had a 2-year, $5.75 million contract. And because you're eating up UFA years, well, then that translated into a $9 million a year contract, which he's finally, going to be at the last year of that this year. So that's definitely going to be something to be that's going to be developing within the next couple of days, I'm guessing. But on to another topic that you've been wanting to talk about, Anthony, and we're going to talk about a team that we just love to talk about on this show. There have been more than one gags and jokes about this team, but you know what? We're actually talking about something a little cool. And we're going to talk about the Arizona Coyotes rebranding and going back to the old school logo. So out with the Howling Coyote and back with the that Aztec focused look or whatnot. What do you got for us on that?
Well, I actually, before doing this recording, I just had Craig Morgan on my own podcast, Brotherly Pod, who is an insider for the Arizona Coyotes. And this is kind of them turning a page, right? The Coyotes are going through a full scorched earth rebuild, and anyone not named Jacob Chychrun is on the table to be traded, including the likes of Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller. So I think for them, it is kind of a symbolic change to try and turn the page on what was that prior regime headed by the infamous John Chaika and, let's say, Rick Tocchet. And now you're moving forward with Andre Tourigny and Bill Armstrong. They bring in John Ferguson Jr. as the assistant general manager, and you're trying to really just do a facelift of this organization. And obviously, when you do rebranding and you come out with new jerseys, it does have a monetary impact on your organization as well. You can sell more jerseys, say, hey, you want to look like the modern day Coyotes. And for an organization that always struggles to find ways to generate revenue like the Coyotes, this was kind of low hanging fruit for them. So I think it's mainly those two reasons why they did it. And then you also have to give a reason for fans to come and watch this team or just be interested in any way. You know, this is a team that is going full scorched earth at the heart of relocation rumors, which I was told by Morgan just not even 2 hours ago, which are completely false. They will be staying in the Arizona area in some capacity. But I think this is just a way for a team to generate some positive interest and some revenue for an otherwise really gloom and doom product.
Yeah, and it's another great example of what's old is new again. And to be fair, that the word I was looking for was kachina. That was how they represent their brand. It's well, when they came into the league, everyone at first were like, "Well, this is weird," but then it got into a little bit of popularity. And it's funny how this happens often when a team rebrands itself. They're like, "Oh no, we prefer the old one." You don't know, you don't appreciate what you got until you lost it, so to speak, right? So. I mean, it's interesting to see, that they're actually. It's fun to see, as a matter of fact. Sorry, like I'm a little lost of words for this because we've made fun of this franchise for so long, and everyone kind of just gave up on them and being like, "Oh, just move already, just get out of here." But now it's to see that the actual ownership and the marketing group and everyone who's aboard is actually willing to try, at the very least, to attract people and attract players for that matter, because this is going to be like a rough couple of years, and we don't even know what's going on with their arena scenario, right? I mean, did you manage to extract any information as to their arena fiasco right now?
Well, as of right now, I was told by Morgan, who's probably more plugged in with that organization than anyone, that they are staying in Arizona one way or another. Now, obviously, there's the thing with the lease not being renewed by, I forget the name of the town that they're in. It escapes me right now. But in some way, shape, or form, they will find a way. Glendale, exactly. They will find a way to stay in the Arizona state. He completely said that, for lack of better terms, that it was just a fake narrative about the relocation thing, specifically to Houston, because that seems to be the next prime relocation spot if a Western Conference team was to have to be relocated. But he completely squashed that. He said they will be staying in the state of Arizona one way or another, even if it is in a temporary capacity in an arena. He mentioned one arena by name, but the name escapes me at this moment. But in terms of relocation, he completely said that is pretty much fake news, and they will be staying in the state of Arizona.
All right, Anthony, just a couple of quick hits before we end this segment. The first one, the news of Travis Zajac announcing his retirement, signed a one-day contract with the New Jersey Devils, which is proper. He spent his entire career there except for last year when he was with the Islanders. Maybe not a Hall of Fame candidate, but I think we'll remember him as a very solid centerman, a two-way centerman. Am I right?
Yeah, I've always thought of Travis Zajac as one of the more underrated players in the post-lockout era.
Totally.
Oftentimes the 1C for the New Jersey Devils. Because even when they were, really having some success when they made to the Stanley Cup final in 2012, a lot of their best players were wingers, and Zach Parise and Patrick Elias. And Zajac always really flew under the radar for me. And then obviously when Brodeur left and Parise left, the Devils kind of went on a downward spiral a bit. But I've always liked Zajac. I've always thought that he didn't really get a fair shake. I was happy to see him go to the New York Islanders last year and get one last kick at the can in terms of, achieving some team success. But well-deserved retirement for Travis Zajac. He will be sticking around with the Devils in a management capacity.
Yep.
But yeah, I will always just remember him as one of the more underrated players in the post-lockout era.
Absolutely agree with you. And then finally, just to end this, well, the theme of this show is obviously the celebration of 70 years of Guy Lafleur's life. And the On This Day segment with Josh has always seemed to float around Lafleur for some reason. So I know this is way past our generation, but Lafleur, one of the best of all time.
No, yeah, for sure. Especially when you talk about goal scoring.